This podcast is based on real events and personal experiences. Some details may be altered to protect privacy. The opinions and deductions shared are mine alone. While based on real events, the names and certain details have been changed to maintain privacy and respect for all involved. Returning to a place you've always called home after a long time away is a disorientating experience. It might sound dramatic, but trust me, it's unsettling. You feel torn between two worlds. One part of you stays anchored to the place, hearing its familiar sounds, speaking its language, and breathing in the sense that always felt like home. The other part takes in the changes, feeling the dissonance and noticing how much has shifted. There's nothing to hold on to from that first version of yourself. Only photos and vivid memories that play out like a 4K scenes in your mind's private cinema where you are the sole viewer. It's Friday, November 15, 2024, 8:51 p.m. in Italy. Though the sun shone brightly earlier, the air has turned crisp, signaling the arrival of winter. The season of fleecy pajamas, chunky sweater, and cozy nights has officially begun. But today brought something even bigger. My favorite Latin artist dropped a new album. It felt like the perfect soundtrack for the emotions whirling inside me. I've already listened to it full, added my favorite tracks to my playlist, and studied the lyrics to every song. And guess what? One lyric caught me completely off guard. It sings about being someone's summertime sadness, a playful nod to a melancholic anthem I referenced in the 5th episode. Funny how the universe works, huh? 2 months have passed since my return to Italy, yet the memories of Lisbon still linger, as though compressed into a single, timeless moment. Would I want to go back? Absolutely. I'd pack my bags tomorrow to watch another sunset at Praça do Comércio or dance to reggaeton at Lisboa Rio. This episode is special. It marks the end of this journey. I'll be honest, there were moments when I doubted whether I should continue with this podcast. But now, looking back, I can say that it helped me see things in a new light. But before we move on to the end, let's rewind to September. I'm your host Jessica, and this is CHARADE. I arrived at home at 3 a.m. local time after a flight delayed by 2 hours. I listened to an episode of my comfort podcast during the night flight to Italy. Exhausted, uncomfortable, and unsatisfied with the destination, I gave myself small doses of dopamine by rewatching our beach videos. We were adorable together. Despite my reluctance, I couldn't help but think about the distance now separating us. I decided to give it a week. If anything came up, we'd talk about it and close things maturely. I was curious to see how the situation would evolve, but I remained cautious. Past experiences had left their mark, and I had no desire to push for anything, prove myself, or settle for less than I deserved. I was determined not to repeat old mistakes for the sake of my well-being. Given the nature of our connection, I almost assumed we'd stay on good terms. It was just a simple, pleasant, and shallow acquaintance, right? Besides, I was looking forward to September 23rd, when my period was due. That would finally put any lingering fears of pregnancy or uncomfortable consequences with him to rest. In the first few days, there was no change in how we interacted. I still felt like his first thought in the morning. Mr. Mirage asked how things were going back here, aka Italy. Then, at one point, he said, "Damn, I was just thinking about when we'll see each other next." That message made me smile. It showed he was still invested. However, there was also a tone that struck me as a little off. We couldn't plan anything in the short term. So I replied, suggesting we do video calls in the meantime to bridge the distance, see his little cute face, and then plan our much anticipated trip together. Video calls are an option, but I'm shy. But tomorrow we can try. That response left me perplexed. Shy about video calls? He hadn't seemed shy while undressing in my room, so it was hard to comprehend why now. Still, I understood it was a different situation, and honestly, we didn't have much to say to each other anyway. The thing is, I couldn't feel reassured by the initial level of attention. The first 2 days were always the easiest. You're still involved, still hopeful it could work out. But as with everything, I had learned that the third day was the real test. There's a phrase I love. It's not about having time, it's about making it. The universe has a strange way of showing you who genuinely wants to be a part of your life and who doesn't. For example, one day we were supposed to have our first video call. I ended up calling a Spanish friend I met in Lisbon instead. I couldn't help but think, didn't you just tell me a few days ago how much you missed me and how we'd make this work? What was I supposed to do? Force him to open up? Get upset and demand answers? It wasn't worth it. So we got through the fateful third day, though neither of us mentioned the video call. I noticed his behavior, but I didn't take it personally. I was doing everything I could to focus on myself, not his level of interest. Returning home was tough enough. I had to readjust to my reality. Plus, I knew that falling into an emotional trap would only hurt me. On September 5th, 2024, I woke up with a feeling that something had changed. Women's Sixth Sense is a phenomenal guide, you know. Suddenly, it took Mr. Mirage hours to reply. That was the clearest sign we were already drifting apart. His messages became shorter and he stopped asking questions. But he still added emojis, almost as if he were trying to hide the shift that, to me, was as obvious as a cloud covering the sun. Did he think I was that naive? Good evening, baby. I'm going to see the sunset in Ericeira today. He wrote at 7:30 p.m., not even bothering to ask how my day had been. Why do people assume you're more invested in them than they are in you? Why act like I was sitting by the phone waiting for updates from him, like I do with my favorite artist? That message was textbook breadcrumbing. A little, hey, I haven't forgotten you, I like your validation, and for now it comforts me to know you're still here. There was no way I'd stick around just to inflate his ego while he waited to find someone else. I wasn't an accessory he could pull out of his closet wherever it suited Mr. Mirage. After an hour, I wrote to him in Italian. Ciao, my day is going well, thanks for your concern. I honestly don't understand your attitude. If distancing yourself is your way of handling things, there's no need to put such effort into it. Just say it, and I'll help you out. In that case, send me photos and videos on WhatsApp so at least I'll have memories of the good times we spent together. I'll do the same, and then I'll leave. Good translation, and above all, good sunset. You might be shaking your head in disappointment, thinking, I would have handled it that better. But guess what? You're not me, and you weren't in my shoes. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wanted to see if he had the guts to say something reasonable like, hey, sorry, you're right. I've been distancing myself because I can't manage this from a distance, even though we had a good time together. Clear, polite, and sincere. But do you know what most men can't do? Take responsibility. They always expect you to get tired and step out of their way. Too bad I'm not that type of person. I'll turn up the pressure until you explode and tell me exactly how you feel. And another thing men love, keeping you on standby as a consolation prize in case they can't find anything better. In his mind, who knows how much interest I must have had in him, coming back to Italy and still thinking about Mr. Mirage. His ego was probably floating on a cloud. His response came an hour later in my language. Stop being boring. Ladies and gentlemen, my jaw hit the floor. The audacity. But at the same time, that reply stripped away any last shred of respect I had for him. Me boring? Was this an autobiographical piece? I replied, but I wasn't boring when your dick was between my legs, with of course a winking emoji to seal the deal. 99% sure I had struck a nerve in his fragile ego. His response? Brace yourself. The tear emoji. Yes, just one. Staring at that ridiculous little icon, I waited for him to follow it up with something meaningful. Instead, cosmic nothingness. That's all? Wow! Now I was labeled as boring because I refused to play his game. Audacity must be on sale year-round. Unfortunately, in the days that followed, I started to brood. Mr. Mirage radio silence might have been a punishment for my drastic exit. But I didn't care. Between the two of us, the one constantly posting stories I made a point of not watching, seeking validation was him, not me. Still, I'm the kind of person who values what I share with others, no matter how brief the connection. So, on Sunday, September 8th, 2024, a drizzly day in Italy, I texted Mr. Mirage to clear the air. Hey there, listener! While you are deep in this story, here is a thought. Ever wondered if your adventures could inspire someone else? I want to hear from you. Share your impressions about this episode, Mr. Mirage, or your own unforgettable experiences. Email me at thesharadepodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at jessie.sharad. Here is the twist. In an upcoming episode, I'll feature your stories, anonymously or not, so your voice can join the journey. Don't miss the chance to be a part of Charade. Let's make it personal. Now, back to our story. Hey, I've been reflecting on things. I need some clarity to understand what changed between us. If everything is clear to you, I'll respect your silence. But it will help me to grasp what happened so suddenly. Another message that made me want to hurl my phone off the balcony and pray a magpie will swoop in and snatch it away. At the least, there'd be a 50-50 chance it will be the last message I'd ever send that would prompt this kind of response. Mr. Mirage reply arrived after just 5 minutes. He must have been dying of curiosity. I wondered, had he been hoping for an apology? Begging? Or was his ego inflating simply because I wrote first? I really didn't like what you said. It was unnecessary, and you know that. But alright. Those words reeked of annoyance. Oh, so now he was upset about my words. Was it truly necessary for him to call me boring though? In his version of the story, I was the villain. Predictable. You replied with an emoji. I shot back. If you wanted to express yourself, you could have used words. At this point, I assume you're okay with how things turned out. I didn't give his little victim act any space before adding, but I'd still like to understand. What changed? When did you start pulling back and taking hours to reply? When just the day before things seemed perfectly fine? He responded bluntly. I really liked you, but I don't think things are going to go through just good times that we have, let alone getting along like that. Mr. Mirage's message made no sense in either English or Italian, and there's that old saying everything before the but is a lie. By writing first, I had handed him the knife I had been holding all along. Look at that! Suddenly the good times we had together weren't enough, and the feelings he had claimed to have had evaporated. Poof! I fired back. And why couldn't you be honest and maintain your point of view when, in Lisbon, I suggested we try long distance after the second time? Why make excuses about being shy for a video calls when you said communication would be an issue? Oh, and if you don't mind, I'm curious, why do you think we couldn't have lasted? Let me guess, I was right. You were in it for the sex. At least now you could be honest, since we are adults and miles apart. I know. Men can only process one question at a time, and our experts are answering only the ones that suit them. Look, I don't remember saying we tried something long distance. I remember saying that I don't trust anyone to try something like that. That first message was pure gaslighting. One morning, I woke up and thought I was the one trying to make a long distance connection work. What a liar! What a bastard! Mr. Mirage thought I was that stupid! Wow! And about us not lasting long. We're still young. How could we have something so serious if we don't even have financial stability? How could we want to shorten the distance? What would we do? And I wasn't just for the sex. I liked your company, talking to you, going out to places. As if Mr. Mirage could ever admit, yes, I was just in for the sex. What a lame excuse. People act like you can only be together if you have a trust fund or something. Can you hear the circus music in the background, or is it just me? Now, I could have gone back into the chat and sent him a screenshot that would have debunked his lies, but was it worth it? Nah. Did I want to play a lawyer? Nope. It wouldn't have changed anything. But walking away with a different response wasn't as simple as it might have seemed. Did you ever ask me? If you don't want to lose someone, you find ways to make it work. But I think you proved me that you're fine without me, which was disappointing because I thought you could be different and that what we had in Lisbon was real. We didn't have to move in together. We could have traveled first and taken it one step at a time. And if what you're claiming was true, you wouldn't let me slip away so easily. It means you're looking for something else. Even though I was hurt by his rejection and I knew where this conversation was going, I was surprised by how lucid my answers were. I wasn't becoming a doormat. I wasn't falling apart. I just saw his behavior for what it was, petty. It will be great to be a part of this, but it's really something I don't want right now. I want to have financial stability. I have my goals and I'm going to achieve them. When I really achieve my goals, I'd like to have you by my side, and I'll be rooting for you so that everything works out for you. If we were in a sitcom, his words would have had me doubled over with laughter. Did Mr. Mirage really think I'd fall for that? Did he believe it when he typed it into the translator? Did he expect me to accept his little condition? How involved did he think I was? But more importantly, who did he think he was fooling? He wanted confirmation that I would have waited for him, like some modern day Penelope waiting for Ulysses. Then, if he achieved X, Y, and Z, and maybe if the thought of me still drifted to him, I'd somehow be worthy of his attention. And maybe that's a nice interpretation of me too. How am I supposed to be by your side when you've achieved your goals if I am not now and won't be while you're doing it? I tried to make him understand I wasn't buying into his logic. I knew plenty of people who had stuck together through tough times and come out the other side stronger. But Mr. Mirage was too busy chasing some image of himself and proving something to others. Well, good luck with that. I'm not someone backup plan. If it's meant to be, it will be, Mr. Mirage replied casually, like a magician pulling off his hardest trick. Another moment that would have been laughable if it weren't for the fact that I had "if it's supposed to happen, it will" written as my bio on Instagram for years. For a moment, I wondered if he was turning it against me. His words hit me harder than they should have, and not in a good way. Suddenly, that belief of mine felt tainted, tied to him, and I wanted to strip it off completely. I didn't want to believe in it anymore because I realized it was completely wrong. It felt like we were passengers on a ride we had no control over. I think you just don't want me in your life and are trying to sell me things which, once again, is unnecessary. I deserve and want someone who's sure about me, who doesn't doubt we can make it work, not someone who makes excuses. Part of me wanted to leave a door open for a potential future, but I was proud of myself for setting clear boundaries. I really don't want anyone in my life right now. It was a lie. Just a week ago, Mr. Mirage had been playing the boyfriend role. Now he wanted me to believe he needed to work on himself, that some external forces were stopping us from building something. He wanted to be alone. I wasn't sure whether to be disappointed or amused by Mr. Mirage's inability to lie convincingly. Whatever you say, I care about myself and my well-being. Thanks for the clarity and take care. Bye. It wasn't what I would have liked to say, but it was the right thing to do. Despite the internal conflict, I was proud of myself. Take care of yourself too, replied, as if I could still believe he cared about me at this point. The hardest first 3 days? Being left with 1,000 question marks, and on top of that, forcing myself to move on. The brain struggles to accept reality. Could it be because it doesn't know how to distinguish between the real world and imaginations? Or is it Mercury retrograde or my Saturn return? I was relieved to wake up in the morning without one side of my brain becoming a background hum dedicated to him all day. Damn, a positive takeaway from my last experience. But still, to fall asleep, I had to listen to my comfort podcast to avoid thinking about when our bodies used to cuddle to sleep just a few days ago. About his warmth, his kisses, his text, about him in general. Something on the unconscious level was still lurking. I struggled to understand how someone's attitude could change so suddenly. Humans are creatures of habits. Predictability gives them comfort, you know? So, if until that moment he had woken up and one of his first thoughts was to text me, why wasn't that routine missing now? How could someone go from that to acting as if the other person didn't exist from one day to the next? The art of indifference terrified me. For my own sake, I purposely avoided looking at his social media. After getting a sense of his ego, I didn't want to feed any weird ideologies like appearing curious or still interest. And more importantly, I didn't want to give him the importance Mr. Mirage wasn't giving me. Did I like acting that way? No. But from my point of view, we had cleared things up without drama and with respect for the time we spent together in Lisbon. I thought that with a little time, we could still interact occasionally, sort of like in memory of the good old days. And yet, something kept gnawing at me. There was something unresolved between us, but I couldn't figure out what. We had settled things peacefully, But it didn't feel like real peace. Of course, he wasn't looking at my social media either. His ego would never allow it. He could have reached out if he had anything to share, right? My feed was filled with posts like, if he wanted, he would. He couldn't possibly hold negative emotions towards me after consciously choosing to keep me out of his life. Did he think I'd stick around in his fan base to feed his ego? No way! Even after everything we cleared up, his responses still didn't make sense. It made me question everything we shared in Lisbon. Did Mr. Mirage ever even like me? Or was I just a superficial distraction? Was he genuinely interested in getting to know me? Or were the things he said just tactics to keep the conversation going? Did he ever plan on building something with me? Or was it all just temporary fun? And if he wasn't serious, why maintain the facade and not take responsibility for his actions? How does he justify it to himself? Does he even think about me anymore? Is he going to unfollow me now? Why say he was open to trying from a distance, then turn and walk away? Those memories are yours. Value them how you want. Don't let him ruin them with his childish behavior. But how could those memories remain real if Mr. Mirage was carefully avoiding me? It felt like a betrayal of something that had meant something, even if briefly. The most absurd part was the issues of photos and videos. I barely had any. That's why I had asked him to send me everything he had, especially the ones where it was just me in them. Did he? No, because if I insisted, he could have used them as a leverage, keeping me stuck. It was unfair because those memories weren't just his, they were mine too. I smiled bitterly at those videos that preached, you don't need a final conversation, no explanations, the behavior is all the closure you need. Translation: let them get away with it, don't let them carry the responsibility, push your emotions aside and move on, everything is fine. How did we normalize this kind of behavior? Two people share time, space, and intimacy, and no matter how you look at it, a bond is formed, whether brief or lasting. So, why is it so hard to ask? Can you explain why you behaved that way if it wasn't what you wanted? Why is it easier to suppress everything rather than addressing it? Instead, we live in a society that numbs itself to escape pain, which feels like one of the deepest flaws in human nature. Then came the morning of September 23rd, 2024. It was supposed to be a day of celebration. My period had arrived. I wasn't pregnant. Complications were avoided, and most importantly, an unbreakable bond with him had been averted. I felt relieved and in a great mood. I started celebrating by listening to my favorite song. But when I opened Instagram, I noticed my follower count had dropped. My body went on alert before I could even check. I stopped the music, not wanting to associate that moment with what was happening, and checked my notifications. Guess what? Mr. Mirage had unfollowed me. My heart skipped a beat in disbelief. It felt like confirmation of everything I had sensed in the past few days. It was an open rejection, a drastic cut. He wanted to erase me like I was nothing. Why act so dramatically? Why run away? Hey, I noticed you unfollowed me. I am curious, did something happen that I'm not aware of? I thought we ended things on good terms. The message I sent didn't reflect the agitation I felt inside. Mr. Mirage's reply came quickly. Hi, everything's okay. I just stopped following you so we don't even talk anymore. My brain translated it as, I unfollowed you because since we are avoiding each other, there's no point in talking anymore. Silence probably would have been the best choice, leaving him wondering, nothing to say. But that was my last shot to tell him exactly what I thought, and I couldn't waste it trying to play the superior card. You think so highly of yourself. I kept following you only because of the moments we shared in Lisbon. Out of basic human decency, something you clearly lack. How disgusting and fake of you. Of course, he just viewed the message. What else could he say? It was beyond redemption. The only person left to deal with the fallout of his attitude was me. He was probably relieved, not realizing he was still carrying himself everywhere. Well, good luck with that. Want to know something else? It took me 3 full business days to grasp his message. So we don't even talk anymore, meaning he didn't want us to talk again by accident. It was ridiculous. We weren't talking already, so why make such a dramatic move? Was it really necessary for him to erase me from his life like that? Wow! If there were no issues with me or himself, then such drastic and final move wouldn't have been necessary. And yes, I can already hear the people who say, I unfollow and block everyone I stop interacting with. Well, good for you, but you're not me. Because honestly, someone else who would have made more sense to unfollow me, especially after seeing me with Mr. Mirage, still hasn't done so. It's not easy when someone you believed you shared something special with rejects you like this, with no logical explanation. They make you question yourself, make you feel like you're the one in the wrong when in truth, it's them who have the issues. My defense mechanism for the unfollow was I don't care. It describes him, not me. Even though deep down I still wanted to understand why he had acted that way. After the umpteenth time of trying to tell myself, who cares, fuck him, wherever he is now, I don't care. A voice inside me snapped back, stop lying to yourself. Yes, you do care. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be thinking about it. Your reactions were real. You didn't wear masks or give him false hope. So, yes, you care that he discarded you like that because you would never have done that. And that's already an incredible advantage. But you care, and it hurts because it feels like he pissed on everything good you shared, because it makes you feel invisible. Who wouldn't feel that way? So stop telling yourself otherwise. Admitting how I truly felt helped ease the turmoil inside me. It's not easy sitting with uncomfortable emotions, but that was my starting point. After 2 months, do I miss him? I've asked myself that countless times, especially in the early days after the breakup. The answer is no, I don't miss him because he wasn't extraordinary enough to leave me with anything meaningful. What I miss, if I'm being honest, are the attention, the companionship, the affection, but not him. Do I still think about him? Rarely. Of course, at first it was impossible not to. I tried to make sense of everything he said or did, like I needed to solve a puzzle. As my emotional detachment grew, I started stripping away the magical shine of the moments we shared. I almost got pregnant by him, and since returning to Italy, Mr. Mirage never asked how I was or inquired about the delicate situation I had gone through. As if that weren't enough, I realized he had paraded me around like a trophy girlfriend to himself, to his mother, and his social connection. Look at her! Look how cool I am dating a girl like her! She makes me feel powerful and important. Showing her off confirms my status. Do you see me? It's like a personal victory, a medal to flaunt. I like being noticed and enjoying the envy of others. The saddest part was that he didn't even recognize the time he had spent building our connection. He didn't realize that the version of himself he seemed to value so much existed because of me. Even though now he wanted to play the cowardly, petty role, he had probably liked himself more as a man while trying to be someone I could like. And do you know what I've learned from all this? It wasn't so much what hurt me, but how it happened, the way he chose to end things. Without respect, without even acknowledging what we shared. Even if it was brief, it still had meaning to me. There's another question I've asked myself. What do I have left from this experience? I gained clarity on what I no longer want in my life. I deserve more than someone who bolts at the first sign of difficulty or acts cowardly to avoid facing reality. Let's be honest. I've learned that I can't expect everyone to be on the same level of commitment as I am. Frankly, the connection with him gave me more than I expected. I didn't start this thinking I'd found something worth holding on to. I thought even kissing someone would be a stretch. But despite its imperfection, the bond had its positives. My Portuguese improved, and without his help, that would have been harder. I learned a lot about myself, how to open up emotionally, experiment, and what I want and don't want in a partner. But most of all, I learned something that hit me hard. Liking someone doesn't mean they feel the same way about you or with the same depth. It's a tough lesson to accept, but a necessary one. Despite everything, I am grateful to him. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey that requires patience, kindness, and time. And that journey starts with you. Mr. Mirage will eventually fade into just a name. My honest advice is don't bottle everything up in the depths of your subconscious. Don't numb yourself. Don't pretend nothing happened. It doesn't get you anywhere. In the beginning, the body is dysregulated, so be kind to yourself. The attention and the affection you received from one person are suddenly gone. It takes time to get used to that. It's not like flipping a switch. Give yourself time to cry if that's what you need to do, even if you have to do it in your car in a supermarket parking lot. Listen to sad music or songs that seem to speak about your situation. It doesn't matter if the singer just ended a 10-year relationship and you've ended something after a month or a week. Your feelings are valid. Go out for some fresh air or hide from the world under the covers. Immerse yourself in a book, learn something new, or let yourself watch tarot videos in the middle of the night. Do sports, meditate, but do it to expel the toxins from the connection, not to prove anything to anyone other than yourself. And you might still find yourself sexually attracted to that same person, the one you'd want a voodoo doll to stab. Don't repress it. The body needs time to adjust to that kind of change. Don't worry, one day you'll realize that person will live rent-free in your mind or heart anymore, and you won't even want to imagine having great sex together. Some people enter our lives for a brief moment, not to stay, but to teach us something, to show us part of ourselves we didn't know existed. Even if we'd like nothing more than to build something with them, sometimes that's not the purpose of their presence, and that's okay. The lessons they leave behind is worth more than the time we might have spent imagining a future together. I conclude this episode and with it, this chapter of my life. I hope this podcast reminds you that you are not the one in the wrong. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm closing the door on this experience while leaving it open for the endless possibilities ahead. And remember, always choose yourself and stay curious. Mwah. I'm your host, Jessica, and this is CHARADE.